Thanks for sticking with us. It's 12 minutes after 8 on this Wednesday morning, and it has certainly been a while since our state has seen a major storm. You'll remember that was Wilma back in 2005. But folks in the Northeast certainly weren't as lucky. It was just last week, in fact, that we learned thousands of victims from Hurricane Sandy are still living in hotels. As insurance claims and lawsuits continue to rage, many of us have wondered, is our own insurance coverage enough? Well, here with everything you need to know is financial fresh start author and common sense lawyer Shari Olefson. Thank you for being here with us this morning once again. So our first question for you, why are so many folks finding they are not covered for the damage from Hurricane Sandy, and what does that mean for us?
Right. Well, the big problem with Sandy is that most of that damage was caused by flooding, and we know that most homeowners policies do not cover flooding. In fact, traditionally, historically, the only folks who are required by law and therefore are even aware of flood insurance are folks who live in high-risk flood zones and who have a mortgage. But the problem is that these storms and other natural disasters, hurricanes, tornadoes, all those things, are hitting with more and more frequency and in locations where they never really hit before. So we're finding that in this case, for example, the flood insurance policies have paid out almost $5 billion, but there are billions of dollars that are not covered, which means that we're picking up the tab as taxpayers through FEMA. The other thing is that we've had recently, because of the foreclosure crisis, Keli, over a third of our home buyers have been cash investors. A lot of those folks are not required to have flood insurance and don't. We also have more and more renters who just aren't covered for these types of things.
And insurance can certainly get pretty pricey when you're talking about homeowners insurance. So what can people do to keep their costs down when it comes to that?
The best thing to keep costs down, I always say the devil is in the deductible, because if you lower that deductible just from, say, $1,000 to $500, you could save as much as 20% on your insurance. You also want to make sure that the coverages you have are actually coverages that you need. You want to take advantage of all those opportunities to mitigate your losses with impact windows and those kind of things that will discount your policy. Credit score also, I'm sorry to say, is going to impact your premium, and then consolidating those policies can save you about 30%.
Now, there's always lessons to be learned from really everything in life, but certainly something like this. So since we hear of instances like this when people have coverage, even when they have coverage, insurance companies aren't paying for this. People feel like, I have insurance, that's what I pay you for every month or every 6 months. You should be able to take care of this. But what can we learn from situations like this?
Well, one of the things that's being discussed is the possibility of national disaster insurance like this, just like we have the national flood insurance policies, disaster insurance to cover these kinds of things, because folks just don't know what to expect, they don't know what to ask, and they don't find out until the storm hits. So, for example, you want to make sure that your coverages amounts are adequate. The average flood policy, for example, only covers $250 for your building, $100,000 for contents. The other thing is you want to know the difference between replacement cost and actual cost, because if you're only getting paid the cash value of your items, it's just not going to be enough to replace it. And then the last thing is that it's the actual adjusters in the field that determine causes. And a lot of these policies say, even if the cause is covered by your policy, if there was another cause that happened concurrently with that, we don't have to pay you. And the computer programs are paying you based on what they call the local cost to make these repairs, which sometimes just are not in line with what the real life costs are.
So keep good records, basically, and start now, because hurricane season's coming up in a couple of months.
And read your policy. Understand what it's going to cover you for ahead of time.
Sounds like this would be a good weekend to do it. See, we have already planned your weekend for you folks. Work out those insurance details. Thank you, Shari O, for joining us as always. Let's send things back to Mike at the anchor.